Triple E EDC back again with another knife video. This is the Wii Double Helix. This is a few years old at this point, but it's the first chance I'm getting to check it out. At the time that it was made, it was revolutionary in design for one reason, well, one main reason. It gave action a little bit similar to Benchmade's Axis Lock, and it sort of operates a little bit like the Axis Lock, but in a different way. And the reason that was so amazing at the time was because the Axis Lock was still under patent at the time. I think now that the Axis Lock is available, for pretty much anyone because the patent is expired, I think this is going to be less sort of revolutionary, and the design is probably going to fall by the wayside, but it's a really cool design and worth talking about. So let's go ahead and do some size comparisons first so you can get an idea of how big this knife is. Here is the Benchmade Super Freak and the Benchmade Griptilian. So as you can see, this is really similarly sized to the Griptilian. So it just goes to show you that they were trying to emulate Benchmade a little bit in the design of the knife and trying to sort of do it in their own way. They weren't copying, it's not a clone or anything, but they were trying to do it in their own way. And you can see here, this is the Paramilitary 2 and the Spyderco Para 3. And you can see it's about the same size as a Paramilitary 2, a little bit smaller. And here is the, let's do another knife that's sort of in the same price range, the Tuya knife NV2. And let's do the Spyderco Shaman. And then one knife that I think is a really good comparison here, which is the Benchmade Anthem. Now, when I say it's a good comparison, I'll get more into that a little bit later. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the good and the bad of the knife. So the good on this is the design. The design on this is really, really awesome. So what they did was, at the time, the way the Axis Lock works is, and there's two different ways the Axis Lock works. So in here, there's a spring, and it's an Omega spring. It's sort of that Omega style symbol, and it's behind here, and you can see it's wrapped around there, wrapped around that bar, and you pull it back, and that releases the knife. So on this version, you can see that they made one with a straight spring, almost like a pen coil, right? And so that was sort of a different take on the Axis Lock. This one is even different, even more different. So this one actually has this on the outside of the scales here. And so you can see this entire thing right here moves. So this is the reason this is bolted down right here is because this is actually the spring right here. It's on the outside of the scale. And as you can see, it actually moves when you pull this back, which is really cool. It moves. Now, the thing that's also really cool is this thing cannot come out while this is closed. It is completely 100% locked in. Unlike Benchmade, which, you can do that. You can wrist flick things out, without touching the Axis Lock. Here, there's none of that happening because it's completely locked in. So I happen to like wrist flicking it out, but if you're worried about the security of the blade, this is going to have much more blade security than a general Benchmade. So you just pull this back, and all of a sudden it flies out, and it flies out really well because it's got bearings in it. So another great thing about this knife is the bearing action. The action on this is really smooth, and this is where the Anthem comes in, right? Because most of the Benchmades are on washers, but the Anthem itself is actually on bearings. Now, the action on this isn't quite as free-swinging as the action on the Anthem, but this is actually smoother because you get that sort of gritty roll a little bit with the Anthem. Anybody who's ever held an Anthem probably knows what I'm talking about. You can feel the bearings essentially in the Anthem where you can't feel them here, you just feel smoothness. So that's another great thing. Another thing that I like here is the finish on this. This comes in a couple different varieties, bronze, and I think there's a blue version. But I really like this stone wash that Wii does. Wii does this better than just about anybody else. The exception, being I think they do a better job than Tuya on that because I think the finish is a little bit better. The exception being Endura. So this is the Endura half track, and this is a working finish. So this is the only brand I think that really has something that rivals the finish on the Wii here. And So I really love that finish, and anyone who loves the Endura working finish probably knows what I'm talking about. So bravo to we on that. Another thing that I like is the blade shape here. The blade shape is a very useful shape, and the jimping on here is quite nice. I think it's aesthetically pleasing with the fuller. I don't think the fuller really adds anything to it, but the swedge is quite nice as well. The blade is not the thinnest behind the edge, but it's thin enough to do what you need to do, and I think it cuts pretty decently under the circumstances. So those are all of the good things about this knife. So let's talk about some of the bad. So some of the bad is the ergonomics are just okay. It is very hand-filling, but because the scales are flat and you have a lot going on here, you sort of feel it a little bit, and so I'd probably put the ergonomics at about a 6 out of 10. Good, but not great. Now, as far as the actual bad, one of the things is the spring here. So in order to brace this, in order to open and close it, you really need to brace it against the back of your hand here in order to pull back both of these. Unlike the action on a Benchmade, I can actuate this with one finger, right? But on this one, it's really difficult to do with one finger. You really need two, right? One on each side. And what that means is you're bracing this against here. And as this moves, you can see that is going to push this onto your hand. Now this is kind of sharp edges. I mean, you can see, I don't know if you guys can see, but you know, it can actually take some nail off, right? So I know that's kind of gross, but it really demonstrates a point. It gets really, you know, really kind of sharp after a while on your hand, and you start to get a sore spot on your hand if you fidget with it back and forth. The other thing is, along those lines, is the thumb studs. So the thumb studs are cut out in a way where they also start wearing on your fingers, and you feel on your fingers, you know, that wearing. Whereas if you use one of the Benchmades, you really don't feel any wear on your fingers as you flip it in and out. Here you feel wear on your fingers, and you feel wear here on the palm of your hand. So I definitely don't love that, and that is a huge drawback for me. Also, this thing is really thick. So if you look at this, this is about twice as thick as it needs to be. So let's look at let's look at the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. So the Paramilitary 2 itself is not a thin knife, but if you look at it against this thing, this is much thicker, as you can see. So this entire side right here is beyond what, like the Para 3 is just basically this side, and this side, and that's pretty much it. So this entire side plus this huge posted clip is it's pretty wide. Along those same lines, let's take a look at, you know, the Benchmade 940, right? How thick this is against the 940. You can see this is a pretty thick knife, right? Even when you take the clips into account. So I definitely don't love that, just because the blade or the handle to blade ratio just feels off as far as the thickness. And it's hard to get used to, honestly. This doesn't go in and out of the pocket as easily as I'd like either. The posts on here give it a really tight retention, which is good. But, you know, with all that's going on in here with the, with the spring, it doesn't have the best ease going in and out of the pocket. There's also a lot of screws on this, right? So because these are all separate pieces, so there's a flat slab of titanium, This piece right here screws in here, here, and here. And then this spring screws in here and here, and you have this in here. So all of this on top is actually added on to to that flat of the scale right there, and the same thing on the other side. So there's just a lot going on with the screws and the double thickness of each of the scales, and so I don't necessarily love that. Then there's the price. The price on this is $280. I believe it's around $280, $290. And, you know, all in all, for what you're getting, it's not a terrible price, but I just think you can do better on the market than this at that price. Now, at $200 or under, which you can find these on the secondary market for, I think you'd be getting a good price at that point. But brand new, I think you're overpaying at $290. So that's pretty much that. Now, as far as final conclusions, this is a really cool technology on this knife that I got to check out. I'm so glad I got to check it out. It's actually a lot of fun to flip open and closed. It really is a lot of fun. It's a different action than the Benchmades have, than the Axis Lock. It's a different action, and it's a fun action. But, you know, there's some stuff with the execution of this that leaves more to be desired. And overall, I think that the fact that the Axis Lock is now open platform, meaning the patent is no longer controlling, this is not as appealing as it once was. And as a result, if you were going to ask me if I recommend this, I'm going to say no. I think there's a lot of other knives out there that you can get for the money that you're going to enjoy more. But it's a good quality, and you know, if this is your cup of tea or you like the steampunk look, I think this is, you know, it's done well. You know, other than the issues that I mentioned. So that's pretty much it. The one thing also I forgot to talk about, I believe, is the blade steel. The blade steel on this is S35VN, I believe. And as you can see right there, and so it's a good blade steel, good to go, and you're going to have plenty of good edge retention and good balance of properties. Again, thank you guys for watching. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell to get all my content. Go ahead and comment below what you think of this knife and whether you would buy it, and also go ahead and hit the like button. Thanks so much for watching.